This is the Ed Non-Tech Podcast, conversations about education, technology, and culture with Dr. Doug Reed and Dr. Matt Stranick. Thank you for joining us.
My name is Dr. Doug Reed, and I am located on Abagway, the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people.
My name is Matthew Stranick, and I'm in Kamloops, British Columbia, on the traditional lands of Tk'emlúp-te-Secwépemc within Secwépemc-Ulu, the traditional and unceded territory of the Secwépemc people. Hello. Welcome, everybody. This is Dr. Matt Stranick and Dr. Doug Reed here with you with the latest, not necessarily the greatest, because I think we've hit a pretty high level, but we're aiming to achieve at the same kind of high level that we already have, I think, with, possibly some variety and variation. It is, of course, the Ed Non-Tech Podcast. It's fully into the springtime now. I'm certainly digging it. How are you doing, Doug? How are things?
Yeah, me too. I'm digging it as well. Stuff is starting to pop up in the garden, and I've never been a garden guy before, but I'm really liking learning the new stuff. So.
Oh, do tell. What's the besides the fact that it's utterly awesome and utterly worthwhile in and of itself, is there any particular thing that's caused the impetus here to get into the gardening and whatnot, or what?
Oh yeah, two. There's been a couple. One is my wife planted tulips and garlic and other stuff that I should probably know. Sorry, dear, I don't remember if you listened. And the other one is I went to Acadia University in Wolfville, and just down the road from that is Howard Dill's farm, and Howard Dill is the guy with the largest pumpkins in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's got a strain of pumpkins, and last year I bought 2 seeds, and I got like 15 meters of tendrils and vines and no pumpkin. So this year I bought a whole bunch of seeds, and a whole bunch of them have already started to sprout and stuff. So I'm looking forward to like a 200-pound pumpkin, but I'd be happy with like a 5-pound pumpkin.
Or more successful seeds, you may have yourself literally a pumpkin patch, as it were.
Oh, that's the hope.
Yeah,
that's
you ought to put a link to that farmer's thing on our.
Oh, sure.
Just because that's I think is probably some pretty legit additional content there.
Oh yeah, and the lady was so nice on the phone, because she said, oh, you need this, you need that, and I was like, oh no, I tried that last year, nothing worked. She said, well, dear, you call me when you get to that stage, and I'll tell you what you're doing wrong, and we'll fix this. She was just so kind. It was just heartwarming.
Fantastic, man. Well, that my heart is warm just from listening to that. That's dope. Okay.
So how are you doing, man? How's in the West?
The West, the final frontier. No, it's these are the voyages of the Starship Stranick. No, it's good, man. I'm going to there's stuff behind the scenes, and it's just to consider, right? I'll just say what I said before hitting record, that as of this moment, which is to say Wednesday afternoon / evening, I still haven't got the Good Friday show that we recorded while I was in Kelowna up. So that is both a matter of just things going on, but then it's also kind of a matter of I may be taking the stoic dictum of live fully in the moment, maybe a little bit too far, in as much as it's like, it's I need to be fully engaged in this particular thing and perhaps at the exclusion of fulfilling my contract, as it were, on these creative endeavors. Oh, hey, folks, the hearts are just going up there. I appreciate it, dude. But honestly, it's I got nothing today besides this and to cheer for the Raptors, because today they're in the play-in tournament, and I can't believe that I even care about this, but I do. Let's go Raptors. Let's get past the Chicago Bulls today and secure the playoff spot. But yeah, I've literally no excuses as far as getting the other episode up.
It'll happen. And to be honest, I saw the cool stuff that you've been doing. Right? I saw the multimedia poster that you made, and I saw. I'm not sure what that is. Like, what's a voc? Is it a lyric?
Yeah.
Video? I don't know what that is.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it. Thank you for that. So I've been kind of I'll be speaking to this in the notes as well.
Oh, okay.
But I have had the opportunity. I don't know. I get a kind of creative little whim, and then I have a habit of just kind of ditching whatever I had planned and just kind of following it wherever it was going to go. So in the case of first of all, the promotional item, I just thought, okay, I follow lots of weird stuff on social media, which we all do, and one of them that I followed up on is like this account that is on Facebook that is dedicated to like old Soviet era Russian, photography and graphic design and stuff like this. And I know that Russia is involved in some legitimately terrible things, including the war in the Ukraine and whatnot. But if you look back at this stuff from like the 1940s or 1950s, I don't know if comical is the right word, but it just seems sort of whimsical a little bit. And so in that spirit, I took this graphic that I saw this morning, and I'm just like, I'm going to turn this into a mini advertisement for the Ed Non-Tech podcast. So that was again, in so doing, it caused me to have to learn a few things about just Microsoft Word that I didn't necessarily know, and that kind of having going with the thought that what I do on this show and on the other podcast kind of feed into each other. I had done, for the punk show, which still isn't up, Dan, yet. But I did a preview kind of poster for the last episode as well, right? I took the cover of a paperback novel and just glomed some TR or some I almost said TRU, some Today New Brunswick, Tomorrow the World stuff onto it to make it look sort of like a poster as well. And prior to that, a lyric music video. So there's this really awesome band that I follow called Sam I Am. They're this punk band that's been active since 1989 or thereabouts, quite a while. And they just put out a new record on my son's birthday, March 31st. And one of the things that sort of came up from the promotional cycle from that album is the singer and the guitar player did an interview with this awesome publication called Brooklyn Vegan. And one of the things they mentioned is that one of the songs off their album, their latest album, is based on this particular deep sea octopus that's at the bottom of this trench, or the Monterey Canyon, it's called. And for 4 years, this animal was tracked by a university team, like a undersea biology team. And this animal has the record for protecting its eggs more than any other species of animal. And for 4 years, it sort of gestates over its eggs and its young before finally, drifting away and dying. And they wrote a song about it. And I'm like, I can go online and sign into, I got a trial account for this website where I can get licensed video, right? And I just downloaded various, licensed video of octopi just doing their thing.
Right. Yep.
And so that was something I didn't necessarily know. Then I threw it into Camtasia, and then downloaded the video because I bought the album. So I got the digital download, and I took the song and just plugged that in as well. And then manually typed captions over it, which I didn't necessarily. That was a feature that I wasn't aware of, right, in Camtasia. And then I'm happy with how it came out. I don't think very many people have necessarily watched it. I did message the band through Facebook and just saying, I did this. I can take it down if you like, and they haven't acknowledged it yet, even. So until such time as they ask me to cease and desist, I'm just going to leave it up there. But honestly, it was a thing that took probably 5 or 6 hours from start to finish. But again, I learned more about Camtasia and just video manipulation and creation through it. So it was kind of a plus for me. So thanks for listening. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to expound upon that. Yeah, man.
And on top of that, it's a demonstration that learning and being creative takes time, right? And sometimes you got to put other stuff to the side so you can get that, because there'll be rewards. We will reap rewards later because now you know how to do all that cool stuff.
Well, it's just one more tool in the kit. It's just one more capability that we have relative to the thing that goes along with this show. So these are the kinds of things you can do when you're unemployed for extended periods of time, children.
Again, it's self-employed. It's self-employed, and you get to explore what you want to explore.
Well,
so there's an upside to that a little bit.
It's this whole thing has been this very, and you're very kind, and you're correct. It's been this whole very fallow period for me. This whole 13 months and 3 weeks and 5 days, but who's counting, since I was last on the roster, at an institution. But it's really, had I not had such a, period of time, it would be something where maybe, this podcast wouldn't necessarily exist as it does, or the other one, and this and that. I fully appreciate the privilege that comes along, because not everybody, has the resources. I mean, a lot of people would have, been way into, the weeds in the job market. But I mean, I've just been fortunate that I've got resources that not only do I not have to think about getting the Walmart job yet, I'm really quite far away from having to do so. Just being able to sort of follow one's whims creatively and personally, that's something that a lot of people just wouldn't be able to do. And I am legitimately grateful for it. Before we go too far, even more further astray here, bud, there is just one more thing. I don't know. I didn't really mention it on social media yet, but have you heard of the actor Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah.
A Hollywood actor. He's you might remember him as being sort of a frivolous kind of hey dude kind of actor. Okay.
Like Naked Bongo, play Naked Bongos, yeah.
That yes, right. And he's got short arms, and he's handsome, and he's had a few legitimately solid acting roles. Interstellar. Oh, yeah. Okay, I recommend Christopher Nolan's film Interstellar with him. Anyway, the dude is
Sahara.
I didn't see Sahara, but I guess it's probably good. You're giving that one a recommendation.
Did you ever read anything by Clive Cussler in the bookstore? It is like 1980s, 1990s, like pulp fiction. It's like the stuff from the 40s and the 30s.
Okay.
He brought it back. It's an easy read. The hero is obviously the hero. The sidekick's the sidekick. The bad guy.
Not a ton of nuance, you're saying.
No, but sometimes it's nice to see the good guy win.
So McConaughey isn't a successful adaptation there. Yeah,
I liked it anyway. I liked it.
So McConaughey is hosting, and this came up on my feed. So thanks Facebook or Instagram algorithm, I suppose. He's hosting a one-day live online event called The Art of Living, not living, living. And
awesome.
yeah. And so what it is like, he's got, I don't even know what it is really, but it's going to be like a full day of like interaction, including like Tony Robbins, like Tony Robbins seminar. And it's like how to, get green lights and how to, have your best, most awesome, whatever life. So I just clicked on it, and then you get this email from Team McConaughey, and it's written in lingo, just the way, hey man,
just
welcome to the thing. Yeah. Right. So now what you got to do is go to Facebook and post your intro for everybody. And there's like 36,000 or whatever people. It's almost mookish in terms of the way that they're sort of putting it forward. And if you pay $75 American, which I'm not going to do, you can stick around and have a more interactive, experience before and after. So, The Art of Living, a unmook, I suppose, an interactive thingy wherein I am going to get some green lights and leverage my personal dynamicism and etc. It sounds like some, pretty silly, frivolous stuff, but not harmful. So to that end, I'm like, okay, I will, participate to the extent that this thing is asking me to. So, anywho,
that sounds cool.
Completely e-learning-ish. Okay, I'll say that somewhat qualifies. And in fact, given the topic for today on the Non-Tech podcast, it may even be a soft intro to what we're going to talk about. So what are we going to talk about here, friend?
We are doing a deeper dive into social presence in community of inquiries.
Thank you. So my whole thing about diving with the octopi and, the McConaughey experience online was only slightly off the mark there. So
hey, it was good for me.
It was smoking some invisible cigarettes here.
What does he say? Right on, right on, right on.
Yes, from the movie he was in. Oh Lord, the '70s retro film where, it's right on.
That was
right
his
on.
very first line of dialogue in a movie. And he ad-libbed it.
And he knocked it out of the friggin' park. And and through such inauspicious beginnings, careers were made. So
absolutely.
So right on. So again, we kind of did the deeper dive on the yet to be released episode previously on teaching presence. So I guess social presence, by default. So why teaching presence this time as opposed to cognitive presence or something else to do with COI, friend?
It was reverse alphabetical, to be honest.
There we are.
Teaching was the teaching, and then social, and then that's just the direction cognitive. I had.
Okay.
My last name starts with R, and I got annoyed at all the. You remember in school where it was like, oh, we'll do this alphabetically, and it's like, okay, I'm second to last, right? You're an S, you'd be the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
So sometimes I switch it up just because.
Giving your younger self a solid. I gotcha.
Yeah, I tried.
Gotcha. Decent.
So to jump into social presence a little bit,
sure.
I am still doing that DCOI MOOC. With the
how's that going? You've actually you've been following up on that. That's awesome, man. What's that been like?
Yeah, it's been really good. I have learned so much about a lot about me and what I get annoyed with and what I like and what I already know. But I like how they designed it and how it's laid out and. Some of the stuff like discussion boards are discussion boards, right? You could try to nuance it, but they're still a discussion board.
Well, and COI, as you've surely been exposed to through that, original research was largely to do with the kind of communication and dynamics that went on with the discussion boards, textual analysis, theming, and coding and such, right?
Yeah. So that's where it started. And if somebody can revolutionize discussion boards, awesome. I'd love to see it, but they are what they are. Like the video content is fantastic, and it's laid out in such a nice way that I can follow it and it makes sense and it doesn't wander off, because I don't have a lot of time. So I don't want to spend time.
Well, and that's where, these so-called open courses, I mean, the participant cohorts tend to be people who already have credentials, people who are, busier within their lives and are looking sort of for something that fits within that. So it sounds like they have a good awareness of that. How's the facilitation, and what's the amount or level of student cohort like?
It's good. They found a nice balance, because sometimes when like the facilitators jump in too soon, it kills conversation.
Yes.
Or when the instructor comes in to do whatever, then everybody just shuts up and it's like, oh, they're just going to tell us anyway, so why bother go through the process? But they found a nice balance, and they're very open and welcoming to, hey, what do you think of that? Or can you expand upon this? Or
it's Athabasca Profs, is it? Or who's doing most of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's Commonwealth of Learning is the organization. I don't know what the relationship is, but I think everybody's connected to Athabasca U somehow.
Right.
But
okay.
I didn't ask.
Sure. No, that's legit. So what? It's like a 4-week thing overall, or like how long is
5?
It's 5. Okay.
It's a 5-weeker. They just extended it because everybody seemed to be a week behind. Like I was a week behind, because I want to get a piece of paper that says, yes, you've completed because I collect pieces of paper like that.
Of course.
And I didn't know what the final assignment was, because it's post this many times on the discussion board, participate in all these other things, and then do this one written thing. And until I knew the details of the written thing, I wasn't investing 20, 30, 40 hours into it. But now that I know, it's like, oh, okay, cool, I can do this.
Awesome. Well, again, it sounds like there's some good principles of online learning being displayed through the course delivery, as much as whatever content that's being spoken to.
Pretty modeling it really well.
Pretty diverse group of people involved as participants, or not so much?
Oh, yeah. We've got 13 time zones, right?
Wow.
Like it's diverse. It is all over the place, and it's so cool because people are sharing, which is, I suppose, what communities do. They're sharing, and everybody has a different education system. Here's what we call this, here's what we call that, here's how this works in our administration, here's how the students have to act in that school. It's very neat. It is very much a big mishmash, which is really nice.
Fantastic. So yeah, here's how it works in Malaysia, here's how, or fantastic.
And there's some Caribbean countries, there's a number of African countries. Like, I'm pretty sure the Maldives, which is a pretty tiny little place, I'm sure there's 1 or 2 people from there. Like, it is spread out. Or maybe Mauritius. It might be Mauritius, not Maldives. Anyway, it's one of the M places that I've always wanted to go to and never got to. Like, I have a list of places I'd like to go to, and both of those are on the list. So
fantastic, man. That's wicked.
Yeah, and it's free, which makes it the right price.
Well, again, this is how, I think, the rumors of the death of MOOCs have been greatly exaggerated. And, people are like, it's all just hype, or, oh, it's on the decline. It's like, when I see, and I think I mentioned this before, when you look at the good work that the Commonwealth of Learning is doing, through their association with the United Nations, UNESCO, I believe, as well as through, it's like the international development and international exposure aspect of it is not to be trifled with. I mean, the so-called, third world, the so-called developing world, this is something where free, as a price line, carries a lot of value, where it's not just something like, they're just trying to, get people to enroll in, their universities or whatever. It's like, no, this is actually for people who, may have far fewer opportunities for various reasons in terms of professional development, in terms of training, educational training, than what we are sort of accustomed to and our privileged standpoint in the Western world, right? In the first world, as it were. So, no, man, that just sounds wicked on all possible levels, and I'm glad that it's a positive experience, and I'm glad that it sounds like it's living up to what you would have hoped from it. Really,
it's better than I expected.
Good stuff.
Because I normally go into free stuff with, like, is this any good? And it's been great. It's been so good. It's right on.
Good stuff. That's fantastic. So again, good evidence, it sounds, of social presence within the COI MOOC itself. So I guess now some of these bullet points that you've kind of got here are is it safe to say originate from within the course?
Oh, that is a copy and paste.
Yeah, wicked. Okay, good.
So when some of their stuff is like the interaction between the instructor and all members of the class, like interaction goes from introduction to community to camaraderie, right? Relation of a learning community throughout the term, right? Communication between and the instruction and all members of the class. Is like, yeah, isn't that what we all try to do when we teach? we want that community to happen.
But making it explicit and giving some reference points and terminology to go with it, giving some tools for conceptualization, some meta language. Again, like regardless of where you're from, if you're a subject matter expert, say in business or engineering or the trades or whatever, somehow you may have all of this awesome knowledge and all of this awesome pedagogical interest in sort of how to do something, but you don't know necessarily what you're capable of until you've got that conceptualization available to you. It's like you can't play Stairway to Heaven on the guitar until you probably learn a few basic chords, right? You can strum, and I'm sure if you strum randomly enough over a long enough period of time, you could come out sounding like Jimmy Page or whatever. But the likelihood of that happening accidentally is almost a jillion to one. So similarly, you can sort of kind of try and do your thing in the classroom, relative to your intentions, relative to a pedagogical thought, but just getting some skills, getting some language, getting some ideas to sort of facilitate that is probably gonna serve you a lot better, right? So that's awesome.
It sure helps. Like if somebody else has already done a bunch of the work, then why not scaffold off that? Like it's my buddy's thesis was like peering over the shoulders of giants, right? Because he was doing online ed stuff, right? So it's like, what are you doing? Okay, I'll give that a go. And the research is in place now. Yeah, of course. You'd be crazy not to.
Yeah.
Right? You just
you'd be just sort of suffering from a lack of creativity, if you were. That's something else too. So I like here, you've got this Kregens, Van Acker, Vermeulen, and Van Buren, 2014. So going back yeah, this is something where they're going back to where the first, the first time social presence was sort of referred to as a thing,
Right.
prior to it sort of being encapsulated within the COI model. Did you want to speak to that reference there a bit, Bud?
Yeah, a little bit, because back in 76, they
Yep.
referenced short in 76. And one of the things is like the realness of the other in the communication.
Yep.
We have all talked to somebody who has been a complete bullshitter or has not cared in our communications, right? And it's like
Guilty.
there's no social presence there at all. Like it's like when you go to you have to go to like some government building and the person at the desk does not care, right? They're punching a clock, they're putting in the time. Or when you try to cancel like a phone subscription, right? When you try to cancel your cell phone service or mobile phone service, they do not care. So it's okay. There's no social presence there. So to have that was awfully nice. And
yeah, the notion of being real. That's something, if my thesis were like in reach, that would be something where I could pull it out and sort of in my opening, preamble where the definitions are set out. One of the bullets that I sort of punched into the social presence definition was to the effect, and as it was sort of mentioned in blended learning in higher ed, the Garrison and his colleague text, it's like, the extent to which somebody can feel real or convey a sense of their own reality vis-a-vis the online learning, right? So I like the fact that you've kind of got something that tags that sense of being real, within this. So
because we've talked about this before.
Yep.
Talking about those educators that have made an impact, like that you still remember all those years later, right? They were real. They had real communications with you.
Yep.
And I know that with listeners, it's like, hey, can you describe one educator that had a real connection and really communicated with you? Everybody will have a teacher pop up in their head. And if they don't, I feel so bad for you. If you made it through 13, 15, 18 years of education and you don't have one that connected with you, I feel for you, because everybody else has a couple.
Everybody deserves that. Everybody should have that.
True enough.
That's
true enough. I just don't use the word should. Should is a guilt word, so it's just not in my vocabulary anymore.
Fair enough.
But you're right. It's so disappointing if they have
a missed opportunity for those who don't. Really.
Yeah.
Well, dope, man. That's so we go from then a sense of being real and having an appreciation for those educators, and hopefully being educators ourselves who are able to share that sense of their own being between and among the cohort. We go from that to
the Anand article. The Anand article is awesome. The social presence within a community of inquiry framework.
Yeah, please elaborate.
Anand grounds it in an empirical, testable construct with an objectivist paradigm. It's like, we can prove this. This isn't somebody just waffling on about whatever. We've done the work. The research has occurred. This is a real thing. This really happens, and it really matters. And I just love when we go from the real person to, we can prove this. This is real.
It doesn't just exist as some sort of fluffy pie in the sky kind of abstraction. So in terms of the so-called empirical approach, then at which point the instrumentation that's used to capture that. Okay, so can you go on a little bit more about that? We're talking probably the COI survey instrument, maybe that's used there. Was there any other aspect of that sort of grounded it that sort of jumped out at you?
what jumped out at me with this is I got to go back to the MOOC. I got to go back to the DCOI MOOC.
Okay.
They developed a tool for how do you create lesson plans based on it? How do you get your plan, like unit plans? How do you design the learning to ensure this stuff is happening?
Oh,
and
wow.
they've got it all on a website, and it's you have the drop down menus, and it's like, I'm going to aim for that one now. Click.
Fantastic.
And it's there. You don't have to dig. You don't have to dig and try to make it up yourself. Here, try one of these 12 things. It's right here.
It's a one-shot stop.
It makes it easy. It reduces the friction, right? Because that's the problem, right? People don't do it because, oh no, it's too hard. It's like, it's like when every time I decide that, okay, I can't have baked goods anymore, I don't bring baked goods into the house, right? If there's too much sugar, I don't bring sugar into the house, and I don't go to places where I'm going to buy sugar or sugary stuff that I'm just going to eat. Like, I stopped drinking like fountain pop like 20 years ago, so I haven't had Coke or Pepsi or whatever in 20 some years.
Wow.
And it's one of those things. I read a thing called Coca Karma, and it's about how a guy named
Coca Karma. That
got
should be a
really
pop
messed
song.
over.
Bazing.
It could be. It probably would have been.
Bazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, or similarly, it's like my cousin, God bless her heart. I'm further down the road now, a little bit further down the road of being vegan, and like over Easter, she posted this picture of a beautiful glazed ham that she made and have pineapple stuck to it. But my first thought, and I'm sorry, Joy. Sorry, Joy. I love you to death, Joy. My first thought was, wow, that poor animal, like that poor rendered, mutilated animal that is in that picture. It's like, I've sufficiently stepped away from it, and not only that, I've been kind of subscribing to vegan websites and protect animal websites and stuff like that through Facebook and things. So now things that I just sort of kind of would have just kind of gone past or just kind of given a quick like to or whatever, I just kind of like or my friend's barbecue picture on Instagram. I'm like, this is just you doing a normal socially thing, but now even just the sight of it just sort of causes me a little bit of a cognitive dissonance. And that's kind of an evolution of my thinking, just going further down this path that I've been on for a month and a half. So as you say,
I think it's a good path. If I could do the food easier, I'd be on that path too. I know.
And not to go too far astray, but like this yesterday.
That what we do? Isn't that what we do?
We take the circuitous route. It's the springtime. The weather is getting nicer. You can go for the longer drive to get to the destination. So my son, I was busy not watching the Super Mario movie with my son and his friends yesterday. I took the younger kid, my younger boy. It was like the first time where he like made his own arrangements to hook up with his friends at a movie theater, but he wasn't. But he's not quite at the position where like he's gonna get to the mall himself and buy the tickets and things. So I kind of just showed up to facilitate that, and then he met up with his friends. They went to the movie, and I'll be like, I'm not. Life is too short to watch this movie when I don't have to. I ended up at McDonald's of all places because that's the only place that was open in the evening. The mall had closed, and I was just kind of sitting there, eating my fries and my friggin' smoothie because that's the only thing I can have. It was just something where, again, the whole paradigm of carneism, was just kind of sitting with me as a thing. But in the course of that, I sent my son a text message, Ethan, the older boy. I was just like, can you remember to walk the dog? Can you just, take him out? And he's like, he didn't even say yes to it. He just immediately replied with a photograph of this grilled corn on the cob and avocado toast that he had prepared for his own dinner. And I was just like, dude, I don't even know why I'm proud of you for this, but I am. It's just like he's like making some choices relative to the options that are in the home. He's not necessarily one to cook something for himself besides just, some French fries or whatever. But this time he was actually stepping up and taking the vegan thing and taking a little bit of ownership over it, rather than just like, Dad, can we have burgers? Dad, can we have nuggets? It's just like he's actually looking upon it in a constructive fashion. And he flipped me that picture, and I'm like, son, this is awesome. And I immediately, of course, put it on Instagram just to brag about it, about how awesome my kid is relative to this stuff. So a bit of a diversion there, somewhat,
Yeah,
but I guess the distance between an intention and a thought and an action, and then other people's response is, maybe not as wide as we sometimes might anticipate, and if it's sometimes something like, something could be challenging, something could be too difficult to do, you may in fact just be not making an excuse, but, overestimating the curve that you would have to go through for that.
Yeah.
So
fair enough.
Yeah. Anywho. So now that kind of brings us from Anand to Richardson and Lowenthal, a very recent reference here, relatively.
A more recent, yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about that, bud?
So what I really liked about this one is I like everything I've read by Lowenthal. I've liked everything. However they write, it's just, it just goes in so well for me. But that's just my bias on what I like.
Okay.
It's in the 90s, because that's when I first got connected with distance ed and the very start of online ed and e-learning.
Yeah.
We didn't even know what that was, right? Because e-business came first. But
it was
anyway.
it was still being worked on.
Yeah, LMSs weren't a thing really. But the one thing they started to talk about was, what do we do with the nonverbal and the relationship cue and the relational cues online?
Yes.
Because when I was a teacher, I have a physical body. Like, I could teach my class and I would walk around and I wouldn't have to say anything, and I could use my body and my presence to control the classroom and control how the discussion went and what direction things happened and all that. And it didn't exist online. It didn't exist in computer-mediated communication. And
it wasn't something where you could just do your little 2-minute video and convey your mannerisms or your body language or whatever. It was, the internet was too primitive at that point, but it was also too wildly new to ignore it, right? So what do? So
it's like right when Khan Academy started.
Okay.
Right, do you know that story about?
I'm aware of Khan Academy. I thought maybe that was a little bit further into the aughts than the 90s, but
I thought he started it in the 90s.
Well, that may well be the case. My knowledge on it is so imperfect.
I'll give you the 30-second quick and dirty that I remember.
Yeah.
This could be completely wrong, but I saw an interview with the fellow, and basically what it was is he was good at math, and his sister had a child that wasn't as good at math, and it's like, hey, could you help? And they lived across the country from each other, so he would take whatever the topic is and just did like a 2-minute video, a 3-minute video, and I think it started by email.
Okay.
And he was really good at explaining it, and I think it was a niece, could be a nephew, but anyway, this is great. Then they started sharing them with their friends.
Yeah.
And then the parent groups are like, can you do one on this? Can you do one on that? And that's when he started to look at hosting web pages because he didn't want to be emailing these things, because back in the day, that would have been massive.
Well, and just as you've been discussing that, okay, so Khan Academy is a not-for-profit educational organization started by Salman Khan in 2008.
Oh my God, I'm totally wrong. Okay.
Well, the underlying narrative there may, in as much as the personal startup may well be true, but according to what they're saying on Google, as of right now, it's 2008. So
okay. I thought it was much earlier than
well,
that.
2008 was, a decade and a half ago. I mean, that was,
Oh, man.
it was really, so, we are talking a generation, more than a generation, in e-learning terms, I would say. So,
and I already had a PhD, and I already had tenure, and I'd already given tenure up.
What?
By 2008.
2008, I finished my B.Ed that year, and I was ready to start a master's degree, via distance, and I was on my way to Qatar. And that's how everything that I value, really, from a material standpoint, but also in terms of my kids, my kids wouldn't exist without Qatar. So
Right.
2000,
Oh, that's
2000 it's a good thing, right? So 2008 it was kind of like a pretty significant year for me personally as an educator. I mean, that to me may as well have been a lifetime ago, really. So, yeah, good old Solomon Comm, keeping it real with the Khan Academy since 2008.
Right on.
Not to
Now-
throw what you were saying under the bus, dude. I mean, I'm sorry.
No.
Just
So I had my dates wrong.
exactly.
I've had other things more wrong than that.
I've been more wrong about more important things by far, for sure, right?
That's it. And
yeah.
we don't have to go in and do the autocorrect later. We don't have to go into the video editor and say, nope, this was the actual.
This is an actual. This is a moment of realism, as it were, within the transcript. And if we're going to get all fussed about presenting ourselves just so and with such decorum and accuracy and fidelity to actual dates and whatnot, if we start getting precious about that kind of stuff, then I mean the whole enterprise is just going to rapidly be devoid of any fun or enjoyment whatsoever. So
True.
brig that on a grease stick, as far as I can tell.
So,
I see. And now you're going live into the Google Doc, dude.
Yeah, there was some extra spaces in something, and it was bugging me.
Okay.
But I'm going to jump. I'm going to skip one. So in the notes, it might be a little disordered. But it's a SciPost article I found about having cameras on. And a bunch of people, because the pandemic happened, right? We're post-pandemic.
Yep.
Or post, hopefully, the worst of the pandemic, right? Having a camera on during class increases social appearance anxiety, which decreases learning of students. So if you're teaching a class, right, and you say you must have your cameras on, that is absolutely impacting the students negatively.
And further to the effect that you're probably using way more bandwidth, you're asking way more of the application than you need to do. So you're actually increasing the risk of slowing down the recording, or causing the thing to fail completely, just due to the fact that there's so many people jamming up the system with unnecessary video, really.
Yeah, it's video nobody wants to see. Nobody needs to see it. It's not like content's being presented, really.
Yeah. So this is where you can choose to be selective about it. So it's one thing where it's like, if it's a grad seminar where it's like, okay, you are expected to be on camera to lead this presentation for this period of time, or if you permit people who are participating to say, okay, now if you want to jump in with a question, you could turn on your camera or not. This whole mandating certain forms of participation just really, to me, is just why would you do that to people? It's just you're putting up a barrier where there doesn't need to be one, quite frankly. So.
Yeah, and I would always tie it, like when I was teaching younger ones, it was, okay, let's see your pets. And then all the cameras would turn on and people would hold up their dogs or hold up their cats or whatever. And then at least it's like, okay, I know they're there. They haven't walked away to pretend.
That's good. And now let's turn off our cameras and not use them again for the rest of the thing, right? Like,
yeah, it's like,
we've
yeah,
had,
I know you're there.
we've had that moment. Now let's just sort of go on to that could be a good icebreaker, right? Like, okay, just
Yeah.
you do your intros, do your whatever thing, and then we kind of take
And I
it
know
into
you're here.
Yeah, and then you all kind of know each other a little bit more, and you can then kind of, once the social presence has been more explicitly established, you can then sort of proceed down the path that's going to lead towards cognitive presence vis-a-vis a teaching presence through the setting up of the teaching environment and so forth in such a way, right? So,
yeah,
dope.
So my last one is a Garrison article, because how do we talk about COI and not talk about Garrison? And
I haven't figured that one out. Can't do it, I don't think.
Yeah, so it's motivation in the COI framework, and it was a little different from social presence, but it mattered to me, right? Because it was about assuming responsibility. Social presence is just not the educator coming at you. It's everybody being involved with and being open and having the camaraderie and the shared whatever to go back and forth and do all that, right? It's about, how am I regulating what I'm doing, right? How is my self-regulation working, and is it co-regulation? If somebody wanders off topic, it's like, hey, we're not going there. Or do you get to correct them, or do you have to listen to them for 10 minutes, be wrong? Or do you say, well, no, actually, it was this 10 minutes ago. I don't know why I didn't interrupt you then, and it just talks about how that helps increase motivation, right? And isn't that a whole point of what we're doing here? Students that aren't motivated are not learning nearly as much as they could be.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things, and potentially one of the challenging things about e-learning generally, is that it really amplifies the tendencies of communication that people would have. So, I mean, if somebody's, really, participating through text or video or whatever, I mean, it's there, you can't get away from it. It's right in front of you on the screen. And similarly, somebody who's not participating, it could not be more clear that they are absent or uncomfortable, because their silence is just completely ringing out. And more so than in a lecture hall. I mean, where the physical body may sort of belie a notion of participation, right, or engagement, where maybe their mind is somewhere else. I mean, the verbal cues and the textual cues and the science, because all that's there is the communication. It's just it's like you say, right? That's really cool that you can bring that in, bud.
Well, thanks. It's just the community matters so much,
Very much.
And the educator has to start it.
Yep.
But there has to be buy-in. So how do we get the buy-in to bring? And I'm not talking about the one or two extroverts sitting at the front of the room in a face-to-face class. Like, I'm talking about every. How do we make that happen? And
right, to the full extent that people are able and within their thing. So
and they learn, because it's about learning.
Active construction of new knowledge vis-a-vis collaboration, vis-a-vis engagement, all of which has to have that fundamentally social aspect to it. Otherwise, you may as well just do a distance-based class like an old school, like fill in the informational packet, send it back, in the mail, and then wait for the response or evaluation or whatnot.
Well, if we want to do that, they did that in the 1850s. Correspondence.
Right. Yeah.
Right? If we want to correspondence, what are we doing?
Exactly. So, if you want to really be able to use the full range of affordances of the online format, then you're almost obliged, I think, as any thoughtful person would be, to try and find those opportunities for engagement. and bring them in thoughtfully and as much as you can, right? So
yeah, because you take a look at correspondence. What's the graduation rate or the success rate? Right, less than 10%, less than 9%.
Maybe.
The number is atrocious. The number was atrocious.
I fully, it wouldn't surprise me at all, to be honest.
Yeah. So anyway, all I have left is a bunch of different little meme-y things that I found about, like, how to build some social presence, and it's like educators meeting with learners and just different ways that community and social presence can happen. So these can live in.
Well, fair enough. All of they'll definitely all go up. But I just scrolling through these. One of them's a letter written by Kurt Vonnegut, the the amazing novelist, science fiction guy, but so much more than that. What's that one about, dude? You want to just speak to that one a little bit? That made that in for you?
I loved this when I found it years ago.
Yep.
And it was another way to build the community. It was a teacher reached out and got all the kids to write letters to Kurt Vonnegut, and then he replied. And they had done this with a bunch of famous people. He was the first one to reply. And It was another way to, like, if you read that letter, it's holy crud. Like, he was in his 80s and he knew about life. And this was a way that students couldn't, they wouldn't have learned some of this stuff.
Right.
Right. Like, there's a thing in there, like, here's the assignment for tonight. I hope Ms. Lockwood doesn't flunk you for it, right? Write a 6-line poem about anything but rhymed, right? Make it as good as you can, but don't tell anybody what you're doing. Don't show it or recite it to anybody, right? And it's just, and then tear it up into teeny pieces. And that's not an activity that normally happens in a school, but it's a good activity to help you learn. I had a
write a poem and tear it apart. That's brilliant. That's I may do that this evening. I've done my share of that before, but not with rhyme poetry. So
I had a similar experience. I used to work across the hall from Dr. Jan Harrington, who is one of the most amazing people, and she. I don't know if we talked about this before, but I'll say it again anyway. I sent a journal article in, and author number 2 didn't read it, but author number 2 had plenty of opinions, right? And I'm like, well, this is wrong. They didn't. It was revise and resubmit. That was what the article. That's the feedback I got, and so I went across the hall and I was ticked off. And Jan was like, "Here's what you do: you write down everything." She said, "Don't put it in an email, put it in a Word doc, write it down." So I went back and I spent half an hour mashing the keyboard and like with you're an idiot and I'm a genius. You obviously didn't read this. You don't understand, blah, blah, blah. Like the venting, the ranting kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then she said, "When you're done, you come back and see me." So I came back and she goes, "Okay, now go print it out." And so I was like, okay. So I went and printed it out and I came back and she goes, now crumple it up and throw it away. And I'm like, what? She goes, no, you needed to get that out. You needed to go through the system. Now write what you want to write, because now you've learned a bunch of stuff.
Man, there have been meetings at work that I should have done that. Okay. That's a tool in my kit now. The write the venting kind of message, give it a physical dimension, and then crumple it up, throw it in the bin.
Crumple it up, throw it away. Yeah. And then she said, "Now write what you're going to write."
Good.
And I got the emotion out, and nobody else had to read it, so I didn't destroy my reputation. I destroyed my reputation in other ways, not like
found other paths to that objective.
I have found other paths.
I feel you, dude. Yeah.
So it would just, and come on, it's Kurt Vonnegut. Like, holy smoke, I'm old.
Yeah. No, I mean, from when I read Breakfast of Champions and Slaughterhouse-Five as a teenager, I mean, it's not something, he's not somebody I've read probably in many years, but I'm always just like, I'm glad that guy was out there. I'm glad he did what he did. You know, that's awesome, man. So I think probably we've hit our time-ish. Was there anything else you wanted to kind of speak to about this, man? Because I think you've got some good references here, some great visuals, and I think we've done a pretty reasonable job of kind of teasing out some of this stuff from our own experience. Is there anything else you kind of wanted to add before we sign it off for the day, or?
The big thing was the word of the podcast was
yes, for me. Okay.
Right? Because it's communities don't self-generate very often. Normally, effort has to go into creating them, and that is a whole component of social presence in a COI. Right? Like
absolutely.
It has to happen. And the question is, how do you develop social presence when you're in an educational role? Right? Like how would any of the listeners do it? And they don't have to send it to us or anything, but if you think about it, it's like, what am I doing? Like, am I ignoring that whole component? And if you are, you're helping your students if you put some effort into it.
Am I just punching in content into a learning container system, or am I giving opportunities for students to engage with each other and with yourself, right? That's you got to start somewhere. So with these questions and with these words of the podcast, here's an opportunity to go on a cognitive journey, as it were, that you might not have necessarily done thus far, right? And all the potential effects which may ripple out serendipitously from that, right?
Yeah. Now, my big question is, I think I've done a lot of talking, and your thesis was in COI. Do you have any insights from your experience? Because I don't want to be the guy.
No, man. I just, for me, it was something, part of it was kind of like out of desperation. It's like, I got to write this thing about something. I knew I wanted it to be COI related because Garrison was literally in the room. He was at University of Calgary, for 2 out of the 4 years, that I was in, or 2 out of the 5 years that I was involved in the program. I mean, I'm happy with, how it all turned out, but like I said, I've said this before, I feel pretty distant from it at this point, to be honest, only in as much as I, defended the thing 6 years ago this September. It will have been 6 years ago since I successfully defended the thing. And I mean, I just, my life experience and my professional trajectory have not been where, like, I'm a professional e-learning scholar. It's like that just, I did not end up being that person. I look for opportunities to sort of speak to it and maybe leverage, that knowledge or experience, functionally and as much as I can. Didn't really get asked about it at Thompson Rivers at all within my tech coordinator role. And that's not even to say bad things about TRU. It's like I was in an e-learning focused position for 4 years, and nobody within my immediate cohort was like, what is this COI thing that you studied? I mean, it never registered as something that, people would want me to, utilize or whatever. So it just, the distance, the time passed. And, it's like, I'm glad it's there. I think it's pretty well written. I think probably a lot of it stands up. Every time I open it, I feel like I see a different typo that I wish I'd, spend a little bit more time on the proofreading aspect of it. I'm grateful to my supervisors for letting that stuff go, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's something that has definitely impacted the current journey significantly, but it's not something I would explicitly go back to and say, oh, well, this is an important piece of scholarship, or, there were some particular insights here that resonate. It's like, it did what it needed to. And if somehow somebody out there goes back to it years from now, or, even in the recent past, and has found something worthwhile, then, that's awesome. I would love to hear about it, actually. but it's out of my control. It just exists as
Sure
a,
enough.
as a thing kind of in and of itself. So appreciate the opportunity to, bud. I hope that doesn't sound like a total cop out.
No,
It's
no.
just, in terms of my lived experience, it's not something I necessarily have a lot of time for in the present moment. Let's put it that way.
I was just, as I dig more into this,
Yeah.
and I did skim your thesis. I didn't read it all, but I definitely I have
Nobody
an electronic version on my desk.
I haven't seen your thesis. I don't even I've never even put my eyeballs on it. So that's something where I ought to catch up.
Yeah, I have it's in a box someplace right now. But
well, if there's a PDF of it, then yeah.
Oh
anyway.
yeah, there's definitely a PDF. But the stuff you were talking about, stuff we've been talking about the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
My goodness, I think we could do a whole episode on how open learning, the definition of open learning, could use some COI.
Wouldn't it be nice? The Beach Boys song. Wouldn't it be nice if we could dance? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
No. That
maybe we'll see.
Maybe. Okay. Well, man, I appreciate it. My kids are literally just coming in the door from school now, so
okay.
I'll take the opportunity to sign off. But thanks a lot for listening, everybody. Doug, thanks for participating here. And I'll just say sayonara and until next time.
Yeah. See you next time, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Take care. Absolutely.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.